speaking on the topic Preserve and Prosper, basically how you can maximize your home's value over time. And with me, Abba Amwa and Sophia Mame Abba Ochre. They are top professionals in their field. Abba is a valuer and facilities manager. And Sophia is also a certified facilities manager, but they will introduce themselves shortly as
yeah, next week it's
about Seso, what we do, who we are. Here are our speakers, as I mentioned, but they will introduce themselves. So Seso is Africa's trusted property marketplace. We offer verified properties from your most trusted developers and offer a 360 solution to home ownership. So not only purchasing properties, but access to professionals and then also financing. We've talked extensively about the cost of properties. And so financing is key. And today, because properties are expensive, we need to preserve their value. So we're going to be talking a lot more to our service professionals. We have valuers and facilities managers on the platform and in studio here. And we will be talking on the topic, as I mentioned, maximizing your property's value over time. A lot is happening in Ghana right now, and I think a lot has been happening globally. And whenever people buy an asset, whether it's real estate, whether it's a car, I mean, a lot of people say a car is a depreciating asset, but some cars are. But the objective of most people is how to preserve the value. How can I get the most out of this asset that I have purchased? And property is crucial because most people buy property with the intention of living in it. So obviously no one wants to live in a dilapidated structure. They want to live in a structure that looks good, feels good. Everyone sees it as valuable. They buy it as an investment, and investments, just by nature of what investments are supposed to appreciate in value. They buy it for legacy issues. They want to leave the properties to their beneficiaries, mostly their children or other family members. And so, I mean, it's not enough to own property. I think once upon a time, that was the general view, and it probably is still the view of a lot of people. If I can only just own a house and do absolutely nothing to it, property prices are always going to rise. Well, that is not the case. And we're going to be delving into that. We're even going to delve into whether price and value are the same. And today, like I said, I'm joined by two top-notch professionals. We all have something in common. Maybe I'll make you guess what it is. Apart from the fact that we are all ladies, we all have something in common. So today, you know, I always bring you the best. And so today I've gone looking for the best for you. So I will just jump into it because we have two speakers today. And so the first speaker who's going to introduce herself is Abba Amwa. So Abba, please kindly introduce yourself to our esteemed guests.
Yes, thank you so much, Tanswa. It's my pleasure to be on here. And good afternoon to your participants. My name is Abba Amwa. I'm a valuer, just as Tanswa rightly said, and also a facilities manager. Actually, in the field of real estate, I wear many hats. So I'm a valuer, I am a facilities manager, I'm a real estate broker, and then I am into construction. So yes.
Abba says she wears many hats. She wears all the hats. She wears all the hats. Yes, very, very broad scope. Thank you so much, Abba. And then also we have Sophia. Sophia, could you kindly introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do?
Okay, thank you very much, Dantua. So Sophia Ochre. I'm the head of property and facilities management with Aris Property, which is a subsidiary of Aris Group South Africa. So it's more into the commercial properties, the facilities management of it, and the property management aspect of it, of all the portfolios that we have. But I'm quite passionate about checking and ensuring that properties maintain their value, the maintenance and facilities of it. And that is not just commercial properties, but residential as well. So I've worked in the residential space, worked with valuers, worked with the project managers and builders as alike to come up with properties that suit the market and also make sure that it's a turnkey project. So we are looking at the welfare and the best placement value on the property so that it meets its lifespan, expected lifespan. And thank you very much for having me here. Thank you. That's
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. And thank you for sharing a bit about your passion. Before we delve into the questions, what I would ask you to probably explain to our audience is, like, what does a valuer do? Maybe I'll start with Abba. What does a valuer do? So Abba will be talking more on the valuation side of things. So if you can let us know, what does a valuer do? What's the job of a valuer? Is a valuer even necessary?
Yes, yes. A valuer is very necessary. Otherwise, we won't have food to eat on our tables. So actually, evaluation is the estimation of the worth of a piece of any piece of real estate or even assets, right? And for the purpose of our discussion this afternoon, I would say that valuation is the estimation of the worth of a building, whether land or building of a property. And yes, and that is different from price. I think we'll get there. And
Yeah.
so for us valuers, we do the work of valuation. We estimate the worth of properties. And the kind of valuation we do, or at the end of the day, the estimate that we get depends on the kind of method that we use for the valuation purpose, for the valuation. And even at that, the kind of method we use for the valuation is dependent on the purpose of the valuation. If I can go a little bit deeper, I can give you some 3 different methods that we use in assessing the value of properties. So for a regular, let's say, residential property, the method that we mostly use is the depreciated replacement cost method, okay? And that method is premised on the fact that nobody will buy a building for more than what it costs to put it up. And so in doing that, we assess the value of the land, and then we assess the value of the structure that is on it, and then we take out depreciation of the structure, okay? And so we add the value of the land and the structure together, taking into consideration other factors like accessibility, road network, all of that. And then we come up with a value. There's also the market comparison method that is usually used in assessing land values. Okay, so we look at certain determining factors of land, comparing it to similar lands in similar locations, and then we come up with a value. And then there's the income capitalization method. Usually this method is used for businesses. Okay, it wouldn't really make sense to value a commercial property using the depreciated replacement cost method that I talked about, because then you are just assessing the physical structure. However, if it is a commercial property, it is an income generating asset, and so money is coming out of the building, so that should be taken into consideration. So that's the method we use mostly for determining the value of commercial properties. So we estimate for instance, if it is let's say a mall, we estimate the potential gross income that will be accruing to the property over a period, say a year. And then we make adjustments for vacancies, property management costs, all of that. And then whatever amount we get, we use a discounting factor to discount it to the present. So essentially, the method that we use in valuing depends on the type of property and the purpose for which the evaluation is being done.
All right, that's extremely interesting. And so what I'm hearing from you is that, for instance, for a commercial building or building that's used for business. It's not just the structure. The business activity matters and the vacancies and whatnot. And for something like residential, like you mentioned, if so, assuming somebody wanted to mortgage their property or apply for a mortgage, that would be a completely different type of criteria that would be used in assessing the property, right?
Yes, so if it is a residential building, yes, we'll still use the DRC method and then present it to the bank. If it is a commercial building, we'll still use the income capitalization method. You know, if it's for a mortgage, it means that the person wants a facility from the bank. So the reports we will take to the bank is what they will base on to release funds or
Grants the
the
facility.
mortgage. So the method still remains the same. For if it doesn't change because it is for mortgage. It changes because of the type of property that
Right. Right. Thank you for that enlightenment. And so I'll come to Sophia. If you could just tell us about facilities management and probably a day in the life of a facilities manager, preserving properties all over Accra.
So facilities managers are actually the people behind the scene who are making sure that your life is comfortable, you are productive in the building you sit in, the building functions to the optimum capacity that it was put together for. And then we are making also sure that the company is saving cost in getting all these done because it's quite expensive. So you usually not see us forefront. We are actually in the background doing all the messy work plus the beautiful work to make sure that the buildings you see actually look like what they still look like when they were put up. So that spans across making sure that we have good knowledge of all the assets that we have in the building. HVAC systems are looked at, looking at regular, if you have elevators in the spaces, they are being taken care of. Generators supported, it are being taken care of. Electricity is being paid. Water, you have access at all times. Nothing is supposed to be lacking behind. And that is the hard service of it. So we have hard services for the buildings and then the soft services. The soft services is where we are looking at the interaction of what is being done to the occupants and directly benefiting the occupants of the building. So you have the cleaning services. We are cleaning the spaces and then you're seeing that. In the past, when people talk about facilities management, they always thought that it was cleaning and security. So once there's cleaning done, it's fine. Once we see that the security people are standing or at post in front of the building and the building is secure, that is it. But it goes way further than that. We are planning maintenance and we are doing reactive maintenance, which is a quick fix that we run around to get done. Sometimes you find us in the buildings on weekends, and on the times that you have left off, we are there, ensuring that the building is being properly put together and all the functions are working well. So if waste is not collected, it's our problem. It has to be collected on time. The area where it is lit has to be cleaned. Drainage systems have to be cleaned when we are forecasting for when the rainy season is coming in. So we are looking at that as well to make sure that the building doesn't flood or there isn't any interruption to your business, right? And it goes further to tenant spaces as well. That is those who are taking care of facilities managers for companies within spaces. So they look at the comfort, maybe the economics of the seating of the space. Have we put the seating and chairs and the tables and all that? Are they placed well? Do you have good spaces to move around? Fire escapes left accessible so it is not blocked, so you can move in and out quickly. How is the air quality in the building? How is the temperature in the building for your comfort? So everything comes under the work of
Yeah.
the yeah.
It does. It sounds like a lot of work, and it looks like you have to liaise with so many different professionals, from the technical staff to janitors and all, what to make sure that your job goes on smoothly, and the end result is that people enjoy the use of the building.
Exactly, and that you are productive as well. Because if you are not, you can't pay for the company, and then we can't pay it.
Yes. So you mentioned reactive maintenance. And I know that there's also something called preventative maintenance. Can you tell us the difference between the two? Tell us what they both are and the difference.
Okay, so let me bring this down to our daily, everyday life. So when you are sick, or you do certain things to prevent getting sick. For instance, you eat healthy, you practice certain hygienic practices, such as wearing clean clothes and showering, and that is maybe 2 or 3 times or once for some people in a day. I'm not putting that on for everyone. And then you're exercising. So a few things you do just to make sure that you don't fall sick. So that is preventative maintenance. And reactive maintenance is when you do fall sick, what do? Sometimes you just need rest, and then you're fine. Other times you need to go to the clinic, and then you'll be fine. Then when you go to the clinic, there are other things. Either it is quick fix, or then they detain you, depending on how unhealthy you are and what has to be done. So these are the same things that apply to maintenance of a building when we are talking about preventative maintenance. So preventive, we schedule maintenance. That is when we know that, for instance, it is HVAC systems, probably they have to be serviced certain times within the year. It could be quarterly. Some people would do it half yearly, depending on the use. So you're doing that force to prevent the equipment from breaking down, right? And to prevent to more like extend the lifespan of the equipment that you're looking out for. So that's preventative maintenance. Reactive maintenance is where it breaks down and you react, or you put in the measures to make sure that it is fixed immediately. There are certain equipment that you can't put it in the scope or category of preventative maintenance, because you fix or work on them as and when. Typical example is light bulbs. When you see that they are flickering, then you know that it's probably time to change it, because there's something wrong with it. It's going to be a hazard to probably people, users of the building, because some people will react to the light and may probably get sick out of that, right? So you change that when it happens, but you don't actually put that in the maintenance and preventive bit of it is you just look at it, but you would actually not change it till you see that there's something wrong with it, that you go ahead and change that. So that's the difference between those two. And various equipment actually work with various scope or time or various schedules, depending on, usually the manufacturers will tell you how often you should be maintaining the equipment. Generators, they'll tell you how often. It could be running time, or it could be do it periodically within the year. So the manufacturer will let you know. So it's quite easy for everyone to just do that and look at it, read that manual, and then decide on when you are going to do that aspect. I wanted it to bring it to our homes. I mean, we haven't started talking about homes, so I don't know if I should.
You may go ahead. I was actually going to transition, so please feel free to segue us into that, and then we can proceed.
Okay, so all right. So when you are thinking of preventive maintenance for your homes, you may probably look at the building fabric, your paint works. How often, what you need, okay, first thing is you need to go around and inspect as often as possible. If you can do that once a month, that is fine. But love your home, walk around it and look at what is happening. Do you see a paint peeling off? You have to do that. That means that it is due to do the painting. So you can schedule probably to do painting of your house maybe once a year, depending on the kind of paint you're using or the budget or how much you want to expend on doing that work. You can actually do it twice every other year, which is also fine, depending on the type of paint you are using. So put that schedule in. You're looking at your air conditions. You can look at the seasons and times as in when you would have to get it done. When we have a lot of dust coming into the system, you might probably want to schedule your maintenance of your ACs probably just after the Hamilton season, because that is when you have a lot of dust in the system. It is very likely that your OC would have sucked up a lot of that dust. So you can schedule that period, or look at your area. Do you have construction work, road construction work going on? That means that most of these units or appliances that you have in your building or in your space would suck up dust. So you should look at probably increasing the frequency with which you attend to them or maintain them. So you may probably do maybe every quarter instead of probably twice a year. Somebody will do AC maintenance twice a year, others will do every quarter, depending on usage and the environment. Right. And for reactive maintenance, the key word is you need to react quickly. As soon as you see it light flickering, it means that you just need to take that bulb out and change it, because it could lead to certain things, and that would it could lead to other things within the wiring system, which would affect other appliances in the building. So for the key thing for reactive maintenance is go ahead and get that fixed done immediately.
Okay, thank you so much. So what you're saying is that every house would have its own schedule, also depending on where you live, what the environmental conditions are like, etc. So I'll come back to you, Sophia. I want to go to Abba for a second. And I want to ask, so Sophia has talked about preventative and reactive maintenance, but do these things really affect the value of a property? And Abba, maybe you can run us through, since you are on the side of assessing the property's value, how does maintaining your property or ensuring it's always in good repair, or even renovations, how does that increase or preserve the value of your property?
Right. So to a large extent, maintenance has a lot of impact on the value of the property. Usually, what determines the value, if you take out location, real estate location. If you take out one key factor, the key factor of location, another factor that I would say is also very important is the state of the building, okay, the state and condition of the home. So like I said earlier on, when we are doing valuation of residential properties, for instance, I said that we take the value of the land, we assess the value of the land, and that is where location comes in, because where the land is situated determines, how much the land is, determine the value of the land. So we all know that land at East Legon is equal to a whole house at a place like Wearefa, so it is very important where it is situated. Now, if you put that aside and you come to the state and condition of the property, I also said that once we assess the land, then we assess the structure on it. And then we take out depreciation from the structure. And that is where the maintenance comes in. There's this myth going around that property will always appreciate, but that's a myth. Land will always appreciate, but the property on it, the structure on it, if you do not maintain it properly, it will depreciate. So in valuation, we assess the state of the building or the structure on it, and then we take out depreciation accordingly. So the poorly maintained a property is the higher the depreciation. It is expressed usually as a percentage, and the better it is maintained, the less the depreciation. So yes, when we're talking about maintenance, then we are talking about, just like Sophia rightly mentioned, preventive not reactive, but preventive more than anything else. Because at the time of valuation, we do an inspection and we look at the state in which it is. So how you have been able to conduct your preventive maintenance. And there's another type of maintenance called scheduled maintenance. It's also under preventive maintenance. Okay, so painting. And if you realize that, let's say a good paint, it will take you 2 years. If you use a good paint, it will take you 2 years for every paint job. Then you take that into consideration and make sure that you do that, you schedule it. There's a time frame for it. So all that has to be taken into consideration to make sure that the building is in a good state of repairs, upgrades. So not just the condition of it, but upgrades and updates as well also add value to a property. So when we are doing an assessment and we realize that maybe initially the tiles was let's say ceramic tiles, and now you use marble, okay, obviously the value go up. That'll be taken into consideration during valuation. We're looking at if it was louvers and you did an upgrade and now you're using glass windows, sliding doors, it is an upgrade, it adds value. It will be considered during the appraisal process. So upgrades and maintenance play a key role when it comes to valuation of properties.
All right, Abba, you made a very important point about upgrades. Okay, and I just want to ask, would this include design upgrades? So let's say I really maintain I have Sophia on call, my house and the equipment in the home are routinely maintained, but let's say my house design is dated. I think anyone who's lived in Accra for more than 20 years can see how the nature of the buildings have changed, right? Obviously, probably as a result of the changing needs of the consumer. I want to know how that affects value, or if it affects value. So if my house was built in 1950, or even 60, or even 1980, I think 1950 is too far away, 1980, compared to a house that's been built today, what impact would that have on the value of the property?
Yeah, so again, like I said, if it was built in 1980, what is the state in which it is now? Okay, now if it was built in 1980, but it still looks structurally sound, aesthetically pleasing, well maintained, then we are still going to use the cost of construction in present day to assess the value. But again, we'll take into consideration, so in valuation, at the end of the day, the value that we come up with is called an opinion, evaluation opinion, so that it is not cast in stone. There are a lot of things that are left to the discretion of the valuer. But then when any two valuers are, for instance, determining the value of one particular building, the values must be within a particular range. Okay, they may not necessarily have the same values because it's a valuation opinion, but they have to be in a same, like a similar range, within a particular range. And so I'm saying this to say that the valuer may assess, like I was saying, how aesthetically pleasing the building is, the state and condition in which the building is. And even sometimes, you see, the older a building is, the more and the older and well kept a building is, it is considered as an antique and even adds some form of value to it. So this is all like in the discretion of the valuer. But the essential thing is that if it was built in 1980s, how is it looking currently? Has it been properly maintained? That is the most important thing that we have to look at. If it is, then we use all the method that we use to value any other property in valuing it.
Okay, all right. So I think that what I'm getting is that value really fundamentally outside of location, I know you mentioned location, also it really has to do with how well the property is maintained. And so the two go hand in hand. You could have a new property that's poorly maintained, that's going to probably end up in a low value. You could have an older property, very well maintained, that has preserved its value. So
Exactly.
what's the difference between value and price? Because I know a lot of people, pardon me, who want to sell their properties and are walking around with a valuation report. And probably just because the buyer is always looking for the best deal for themselves, but they think, oh, this is an overstated value, or vice versa, or vice versa. So what's the difference between price and value?
Value, yeah. So before I even go into that, let me just say that the valuation report should always serve as a guide. Okay, so that's the value and not the price. The difference between value and price, if I'm to use, let's say, a Gucci bag, for instance, right? Let's say a Gucci bag sitting on the shelf of Mr. Price. Okay, a Gucci bag, that original Gucci bag, that is worth, say, let me just say $10,000 sitting on the shelf of Mr. Price, and they have put a 200 Ghana cedis price tag on it. Does it change the value of the bag? No, it's still an authentic Gucci bag, but because of where it is placed and the price tag that has been put on it, it's different from what the value actually is. So to explain it, the price is what the owner of the property is asking for, or the price is what the buyer is willing to give for whether property or item or whatever. That is it. But the value is what it is actually worth. So that a property might be valued at 1 million Ghana cedis, but because the owner of the property is really pressed and needs money badly, he may decide to sell it for 500,000 Ghana cedis. And that is the price that he's offering it. That doesn't change the fact that it is valued at 1 million Ghana cedis, and vice versa. So price is very different from value. And the value evaluation report should always serve as a guide to an owner of the property or a buyer of a property.
Okay, it serves as a guide. So I would see that most buyers would want to, well, depending on what was higher, would probably want to go for a lower price, whereas a seller would want to go for maximum value. And
yes.
somehow
And every owner of a property feels their property is worth $1 million.
$1 million, yeah. I've heard that before. And so far, coming back to you, I mean, we're talking about maintenance, and I mean, unfortunately, it's said that Ghanaians have a very bad maintenance culture. I think people typically wait for things to break down, probably on a personal level, obviously not people of your repute. But what is a practical way that homeowners can infuse facility management and maintenance into their homes? Because again, like Abba was saying, you go into a lot of properties, the person is quoting in the tens of hundreds of dollars in a lot of instances, but you enter the home and you realize it hasn't been maintained, it's in complete disrepair, but the person believes that because it's located in location A, B, C, or D, it is worth that. So what are some practical and cost-saving methods that people can use to ensure that the maintenance of the property is moving along together with the perceived value from the owner's perspective?
Okay, so I think Abba has given us enough motivation for homeowners to want to be passionate about maintaining the value of their property, no matter what the end goal is. I mean, be it flipping it on the market, which is where you want to look at where the market forces are in fixing what the price would be. Or be it preserving it for generations. In your opening statement, I think that's why you mentioned something about if the property is going to be left for generations. Which condition are you going to leave your property for your generations, the people that are coming after you? That is, if you are not going to sell it, are you going to run it down? So the first part, or the first thing you should look at is you should be passionate about the property you have, about your building. You should be concerned about your building. And I'm saying this not for only those owner-occupier buildings, but also for landlords who have tenants sitting in their spaces. Some of them neglect their properties. That's bad because probably where it is located, for them driving there to the rough road to go and inspect their building and see which state it's in is too difficult. And they also don't want to employ the services of probably a facilities manager or facility services person who will be checking that and giving them reports because they don't want to spend money on that. At the end of the day, the building will be run down. I'm sure, Abba, so you come across quite a number of these properties where they are ready to put it on the market and you have the kitchen run down so badly, electricals pulled out so badly that most of these things have to be replaced. Or then you will have to more like sell the property as a salvage value and not get the actual value that it is worth if all these things have been taken care of. So what is important here is make time to walk around your property and inspect it. When you inspect it, you would see if anything is going wrong. That is, if you see if probably a part of this, the shingle on the ceiling is going off, or there's a crack in the wall, any of that, then you note it down. So you start from outside of the building. You walk around the outside, right? And then you look at the ceiling. The ceiling, you may not see that much from when you are down, probably you need to go up. But another thing you could do is when you are inside the building or when at the first onset of rain, look out for signs of leakages. Signs of leakages is where probably you have a plasterboard ceiling and then you see it's staining. You see probably it's wet, or when it gets wet and it dries, it leaves a brown stain. So it's clear, and that should let you know that there's water dripping from your roof from the first rain. That means that you have to send somebody up to the roof to get that fixed and corrected. Right. When you walk around, you see a crack, you immediately investigate that, call somebody in to come and have a look at it. Is this structural or is this just the rendering, the surface crack? If it is structural, you should be mindful of it because I don't think you'd want water to get into your pellets or the metal rods, the iron rods that are holding it, and then over time you have the building breaking at some point. I don't think you'd want to see that. So you want to call somebody in who would come in and fix that part, close that gap with tools that's needed. So that is outside. You go inside, you look at the floor. How is your flooring doing? Is it properly cleaned? Parts of it's coming off. If it's tile work, replace it and fix that. Look at your electrical fittings. Do you have sockets in place that probably look like they flicker when you put in the plug, or there are sounds, and then there could be black tiny smokes that are coming in. That means that you need to change it immediately because I believe you don't want your house burning down, right? So you need to check that and then have it replaced. Now, these are just things that you see that is practical. You just observe and then you work on it immediately. The advanced or better version of it is just to keep records of what you have. So you can keep records of your number of leases that you have in the building. Keep records of when you did painting on your building, when you have to look at that again, right? And call the people in and schedule that. You can just pull your on your calendar and put on it probably twice in a year. That maybe in March you would service your ECs, and then probably in December will be the next time you do that. Put that in and then set a reminder. And that will pop up. Then you will get it done. Put the people on call and get it done. And when you get pre-planned maintenance in, you actually don't spend so much that when you wait for it to break down and you have to replace the equipment is more expensive. So on your cost bit, you're saving costs when you plan your maintenance and you get that done. You don't have to wait for all the painting on your building to peel off before you call in the team to come and scrape everything off. We put smooth over on it before you apply your paint. When you see that it looks like it's wearing off, they can come in and just fix a few parts and paint over it, which is cost saving, because then you are not breaking everything off and then redoing it. And your building will definitely keep on looking really good.
So it's about doing it.
I can
Sorry.
add something.
Yes, please go.
Yeah. I like the fact that Sophia brought up the issue of paint and dampness and all of that. I really like that because that is one common neglect that I've seen amongst property owners in Ghana. The dampness issue. I think in fact, I think 80% of homes have that issue, and the dampness issue. Okay, either it is rising dampness from the foundation, or just like Sophia mentioned, it is penetrating from the roof, But that is one key issue I realize with most buildings. And so when it happens like that, especially with the rising dampness that comes from the foundation, you realize that the paints are peeling at the bottom of the building. Okay, and that is because there are certain mistakes that people make, when acquiring properties or during the construction phase of the properties. They don't really pay attention to the application of the paint that we paint around the foundation to prevent such leakages. They do not really pay attention to that. Usually during construction as well, there's this rubber that we lay after the foundation has been done. We lay a rubber on it. Some people don't do that. And you can imagine what will happen after a long time if water keeps seeping, it creates structural issues. There's a property at Jowlu that, I was a witness. I think the officials from AESL had to come to intervene. And I was told that if they hadn't come within a week, something disastrous would have happened, because there was that, seepage from the foundation, and it had gone on for a long time, had eaten into the building. And so we have to really pay attention to that in painting and making sure that we keep the property. Painting is not just aesthetically pleasing, but it protects the building from the vagaries of the weather, and for metals, painting prevents corrosion, so all these protect the building, and it is very essential that we are not just excited, especially with landlords. They are not just excited about collecting rents, but then, they put some sinking fund aside for the maintenance. There's a 1% rule of maintenance that says that, for every rent that you collect, put 1% aside. But I think Sophia will attest to it. Maybe she doesn't want to get into trouble. And I also don't want to mention names, but there are some landlords who never. But there are some properties that I manage now. And for 2 years, I've been asking, for the place to be painted, and it hasn't been done, So I think that owners of property have to know that if they do if they practice a good maintenance culture, it retains the value of their building. So that money has to be put aside to maintain the property, so that they get to continuously and benefit from. What they say, that when you're doing a business and you get returns, put back into the business. It's on the same premise. So take money aside, put it back, because that is what is giving you money. I just don't understand that concept. You are getting rent from it. Why don't you protect your investment? It's very essential. So I think that a good maintenance culture on properties cannot be emphasized enough.
Yeah, thank you, Abba. I think, well, I'll be sympathetic and say perhaps a lot of people don't know how simple it is. The way Sophia broke it down to say that, look, it starts as simply as just walking around your home or being very observant within your home. And if you're a landlord, if you can't do that yourself, hiring someone to do that, and incrementally making the changes. You know, sometimes it might just be changing a light bulb. I think changing one light bulb is a lot easier than changing 20, depending on the size of your building, or painting a portion of your wall is definitely less expensive than having to paint the entire home once you wait for everything to just go into disrepair, like I said. And Abba, from your points, I also got that, look, it doesn't even start from when the building is completed. If the home is yours and you're building it yourself, or even if you're buying it, you need to be on site, see what's going into the construction, because some of the maintenance work is as a result of cost saving, right at the beginning, right? You know, sometimes we cut corners, but those corners just come and bite us further down the road. So I do think that it's a signal to people to do the right thing, and also hire professionals, you know, things that you don't have the capacity or the bandwidth for, hire someone, because it can just save you so much. Abba and I were at an event about 2 years ago, and you remember you were showing me this comparison of two homes in Reggie Manuel, semi-detached, owned by the same person. One was maintained, the other wasn't. And the difference in selling price, I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And obviously, it wouldn't have cost that much to maintain it, right? It wouldn't have. I just quickly want to say, I forgot to say this at the beginning. Please, if you do have questions, we have a question and answer box. Kindly drop your questions in the box. We'll be happy to hear from the audience, whatever questions you have, whether you're a landlord, you're a tenant, or you're living in your own home, concerning the value or the maintenance of your property. That's why we're here today. And yes, the recording of this will be shared to all registrants. I think that question came in the chat right now. So I just want to come back to this issue of value, and this our house that was built in 1980. Okay, so I've hired Sophia. Sophia has done an excellent job of maintaining the property, everything. I mean, we change our ACs. I just really want to understand the place design, the role design plays, sorry, in that. So let me give you an example. I mean, when we were kids, everybody's house had louver blades, right? Glazed windows was not a thing. It was louver blades all the way. But now that is very rare if you live in Accra. If you live in Accra. And so, assuming I'm someone who wants to build not for myself, I think when you're building for yourself, the considerations are very different. It's your preference, what you want. The value is subjective to you. But if you're building for consumption, doesn't perception of the finishes have a part to play in what people would consider the value of the property? If you could both answer that, because I know, Sophia, you are maintaining commercial properties. I don't know how many of them have louver blades, but yes, I just want to, like, just for the benefit of the audience, what part that plays, especially because we talked about property as legacy. So let's say, I mean, we are relatively young, but let's say we have property we want to leave for our kids, and we want to leave that property in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Do we have to do anything to the property? Would I have to change my louver blades to glazed windows, or if I wanted to sell it? So I just want to understand that interplay between design, finishes, and then value, or terrazzo and tiles, all those things that we see changing. What part do they have to play in the value of a property?
Right. So in determining value, there's what the appraiser does or the valuer does, their perception or their opinion of value. And then there's buyer perception. So the buyer's perception of value. Okay. So just like you rightly said, somebody, even let's move away from what the example you gave, something like a 2-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house. Okay. So somebody who is looking for okay, in a highly residential area, like let's say East Legon Hills, right? Where maybe most of the properties there are, family homes, maybe 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom home. Okay. If you build something like a high-rise apartment building, okay, and that is not what the demand is in that area, it may stay on the market for a long time, okay? But that does not mean there's anything wrong with the property, but it's just the valuers, sorry, the buyer's perception of value, what they are looking for. If they don't get it, it is not valuable to them, and so they may move on to the next property. Okay, so like you rightly said, if it is, there are people who like, even choice of cars. There are people who like all these old model cars, that kind of thing. And they value it and they like to go for that. In the same way, somebody may like a building. The last time somebody brought me a property to list and they were looking at it from the sustainability point of view. And so it was like a big building with louver blades. So she was going on about the fact that, sustainability, no ACs, that kind of thing. And she had very valid points. But in the market today, that is what people are looking for. There's a trend. Aluminum glazed, windows. That's what everybody is going for. So they don't see the value from the buyer's point of view. In fact, 80% of buyers will not see the value in that kind of building, as opposed to if it were glazed nicely. So the property sat there for a very long time, weren't getting a buyer. And she was looking at it from the sustainability, whatever she has done. She's grown greens, she's grown, but the buyer doesn't see it that way. So usually it depends. There's the valuer's perception or the valuer's opinion, and then there's the buyer's, perspective. Sometimes when they interplay, it may force, the forces of demand and supply also affects value. So sometimes when the buyer's perception and valuer's opinion interplay, it can force the value of the building to go down or up.
Okay, so
I don't know if I've answered your question.
You have. Sophia, you wanted to add something?
So definitely with design and value, which you made examples on certain kind of finishes. Yes, it can add value. For instance, if you're using travertine finishes for the spaces, or if you are going to use kitchen, which you probably bought from Italian Zanuti or whichever, I mean, some kind of, definitely the value would be up, right? The kind of design you put up, the value would be up. But then you have to look at what purpose are you putting the building up for? What are you valuing it for? Are you putting it on the market for sale? If you are putting it on the market for sale, then you are considering what Abba is saying now. Are you going to look at the niche market? So some people would put up a building and put up expensive finishes in the space because they are targeting a niche market where probably they would want to sell for $3 million or something on the market. It is going for a niche market. So they would do that design to fit that niche market. But what purpose do you want it for? Is this something that you want it to be on the market that will go quickly? Then you have to go with the trends that's out of the market. That's Abba is saying, so that it can flip or it can be sold out quickly. But it's something you were doing, the building you have, which is probably dated, and you've maintained it well, and you don't have any intention of probably putting it on the market for sale. You are preserving it for generations to come. Then you can just keep upgrading it. You can just keep polishing because I've seen certain terrazzo finishes that look very good. They look very good. They've been polished very well and shine. You have the shine and everything, and it's hardy as well. So it how you are maintaining it or adding a bit of value to it would help to upgrade its value, right?
Yeah. Thank you both. There's a comment here from Hope and then also a question. And he is saying the first impression of your property is critical, whether advertising to guests online, on travel booking sites, or when potential tenants do a walkthrough. A great way to set the right tone is to invest in improving your Fire and Abba have both mentioned that things can look one way, but in reality, they may not look as they seem. So it's important to get professionals to assess these. And his question, which I believe would be to Sophia, is what are some of the ways to improve energy efficiency and to avoid over improving a property?
What is over improving a property? You know,
Probably making changes too often.
okay. I think we lost a little bit, but I think the preamble to it is what probably some of my colleagues would say, the lip stains of it. So the few things you were doing, that is touching up on painting, polishing the floor, which I've mentioned, making sure that the cleaning is done well, you don't have dirty spots around, your fixtures and fittings are cleaned properly, because if you have your toilets and all, you are probably cleaning it properly, you don't have to be changing it too many times. So it's what you were doing daily. And when you want to keep the first impression on people, that is if you probably putting it on the market for somebody to buy. What these things are the first things you'll probably look at. They'll see the building, they'll come into the compound, have a look at the compound. What do you have on your compound? Do you have heaps of rubbish? Do you have overgrown weeds? Do you have drainage systems which are not covered well, or what that? How is your wall looking like? Are they freshly painted? They don't necessarily have to be freshly painted when they're coming in to look at it. But if it is something that you're routinely doing, it still looks good. It would look good. There are certain paints, indoor paints, which are washable. You can invest in those. Then you don't have to keep painting your interior all the time. So when you have certain stains on it, you just clean it and you're good. You have somebody coming in, you want to show it off, you clean it. But those things are slightly more expensive than the regular ones. You get it? So you still have to put in a little bit, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't have to do so much. Yes, to state that. Right. And the sustainability bits, that is bringing saving the environment, and then we talked about river blades, which is now we are seeing that it is not a trend that people are going for anyway. But you would want to probably look at the building from the design perspective, the onset, when they were designing it. How have they positioned the building to allow in for enough light so you don't have to put on your lights the entire time? And then to allow in for cross ventilation. So you don't have to use your ACs the entire time. You can have host people in the space and still not put on your ACs, because the building is positioned well. You're not taking in too much heat. That's the sun coming in from the east and setting from the west. It's positioned very well. So you need to have those discussions as the design phase of it, so that you take advantage of some of these little things that we can do in the homes.
So I'd like to touch on the over improving bits that you talked about, and I would want to look at it from the lens of value. So you realize that sometimes people put up like mansions in certain locations. Okay, now we look at cost of construction is the same. The cost of putting up a mansion in OEB, for instance, will be pretty much the same as the cost of construction of putting up a mansion in East Legon, right? But the location and the land, creates the difference in value. So let's take an example where you spend, let's say land value in OEB, it's, let me just say 20,000 USD, right? And the cost of constructing a mansion will cost you, let's say $400,000, okay? So the total cost of construction is maybe $420,000. Now, if you're looking to build a house like that and stay in, that is all well and good. That's fine. But if you're looking to put up a property like that and sell, that may work to your disadvantage, because what will influence somebody, $420,000 can get somebody a house in East Legon. So why would a person leave a house in East Legon to buy your mansion at OEB? Sometimes it goes beyond maybe the niceties, but maybe they think about the location. I don't know if you get what I mean. So I think that what he's touching of about over improving, that would depend on whether you are improving to live in and enjoy, all that you are putting in the building, or whether you are improving to sell. And that is something that we are looking at. Again, I'd like to use an example where I had a seller who was selling his property at East Legon Hills, right? And, he got very emotional, quote unquote. And so he built it with like top-notch, things, which is not bad. So the kitchen was Kaiser, the tiles was marble, that kind of thing. And the property stayed in the market for a very long time because he was building to sell. And there's the average going rates of properties, let's say 4-bedroom houses within that enclave. And so it has to fall within. Most people can't tell the difference between normal porcelain tiles and marble. And so when they enter the room, they see tiles. Tile is tile. But because you spend so much, obviously the value will go up and the price will also go up. And so it stayed on the market for a long time because buyers didn't understand why maybe houses in that vicinity, 4-bedroom houses, are going for 240,000 thereabout, whilst yours is going for in excess of 350,000. You get what I mean? So I'm just touching on this to say that over improving will determine. Depends on what you want to use the property for, whether you are living in it or you are selling. If you're selling, then you may want to consider over improving. You may want to, put up a building that is within, the going rates of the area in which the property is located.
Yeah, I think that's very valuable feedback, because what I have realized is that different locations have price ceilings, right? So beyond a certain price in certain locations, most buyers would not consider that location. Unlike Abba, I tend not to mention names, but yes, beyond certain prices, people start to double guess, especially when they could get property in an area they consider more convenient, closer to town. And so the considerations, again, for your personal property and property you are looking to sell are very different. Eric is asking what role, I think this has been answered, but we can just quickly go over it. What role does antiquity play in valuation? For example, a place near the lighthouse in Accra. Yeah. So I think what he's saying is, like, if you live in an antique home, or I don't know the word, an antique home, a home that is considered historic or has some historical value, what role does that play in the overall value?
Like I said, it's all, a valuer's opinion. So the valuer will consider all circumstances, surrounding the purpose of the valuation, the circumstances. So if it is close to lighthouse, sometimes we consider things as, even noise. There's a valuation that we did close to a fuel station. And it endangers the property. I think it was next door to a fuel station, and so there are so many factors that we consider. We consider if it is an antique home, how it is maintained. We consider the purpose. Is it a restaurant? Is it something that people are likely to come there because of
The
the way
aesthetic.
the aesthetics, will it fetch income to the owner, by virtue of that fact, or is it just a home? We consider location, so many things, so many factors that we consider to decide on a rate and the calculation to use for the particular
Yeah.
Yeah, but then so I'll come in quickly here. We shouldn't forget that the basic is the value of the land and the building that is there, the structure that is on it. So the valuers will look at what has gone into the structure, right? Which is in case you're using the DRC methods to do the valuation, right? So where it is, what is the value of land within that area? If the value is not as he's talking about the lighthouse area, the fact that you have it being a site which you have people visiting and it is put online, most people place some kind of value to it because of history. But what is the value of the land in that area? It can't change, right? What you can get or with what stay, then the building that is on it. So the additional factors, which is the sense of value to people, would be additions to it, but that wouldn't be the major thing to look out for because they are most well, we don't want to mention specific scenarios, but there are most people on the market who feel that for the sake of them probably having a building, maybe next to the Gecko Scouts Castle or something like that, next to the sea, which hasn't been probably taken care of, is actually almost running down. Or maybe our beach road here is a typical example. You have certain properties and they expect an arm and leg for it because they feel that there's some kind of sentimental value in it. But if you want to put that on the market, the person coming to buy is not looking at the sentimental value that you are placing on it. That's the value is pushing on, or the seller thinks that I should get such and such amount for it because it is here. The basic is there, and then the others become an addition to it. But if you want it to be on the market for 5 to 6 years, then you would keep at waiting for the sentimental value. But if you need money and you want to flip it quickly, then you take the advice that I'm sure usually valuers would give, that for the purpose you want it for, let's place it within this range because that is what the market is looking for.
Yeah,
I
that's
could also
very
use
important.
this example where beachfront properties are not really a thing in Ghana, but elsewhere in the US and all of that, it's like a thing, and if you have your property at the beachfront, it's very expensive. But in Ghana, all these Adan, that area, you see the kind of people who live there, the farmers and all of that. And I had this valuation where somebody wanted to put up like a beachfront, beachfront properties, over there. And I had to do evaluation. And there are certain factors that I had to consider, international rates, all of that. So that's why I'm saying that it is not really cast in stone. If you're looking at, in that particular valuation, right, by virtue of the location of the property, right? If you are sending building materials to the property, you have to do that using a boat. Can you imagine sending iron rods, sending all these things through a boat, So all those things have to be factored in the cost of the valuation. So it's not like a straitjacket. There are, cases, isolated cases where you have to come up with, study a lot of factors before you determine how to value those peculiar properties. So, I mean, if it falls on the table of the valuer, we know what to do. But the the regular houses, that's where we use the regular methods that we know, DRC, market comparison, income capitalization method. Yeah.
Right. So I think my main takeaway from this line of questioning is the sentimental value and then also consumer perception, because a lot of sellers want to impose the sentimental value they ascribe to their property to you. But I mean, to the seller, it's neither here nor there. They are looking for what they are looking for, and more or less will determine what they are willing to pay for whatever they think they are getting. And so, yeah, for anyone here who's a builder or a homeowner looking to sell their property, sentimental value has to be parked because the buyer, more often than not, would not consider that valuable. And I give an example of people who maybe your kids have grown up in a home, so it holds so much value for you because of the memories, but those memories are yours. A buyer is not going to consider that. They are looking at their budget and what they believe their budget should
And
get them.
sometimes, that's why let me quickly add this, that sometimes they add, development costs to
Mhm.
the price of the house, to the value, let me put it that way. Because
Okay.
for instance, how land issues are in Accra. So there are certain people who end up paying twice,
Yeah.
for the land because of
Yeah.
litigation and all of that. And they want to add all that to the value of that. There's somebody like that who wanted me to sell their house for them. And once they mentioned the price, straight away, I told them that, look, this is above the market value. I was like, oh, initially, all these partisans, I brought a lot of bags of cement and they stole all. This is how much I have spent since I started putting up the building. I'm like, at the end of the day, you can't add the cost of that to the building because you outprice yourself. You go above the market value, and that is
Yeah.
how there are some arbitrary pricing of properties on the market. People
On the
add
market.
their entire development cost, what they lost, how much they paid for the land, all of that, and so it leads to arbitrary pricing.
So, Abba, from this, what I guess you're saying is that if unfortunately someone, maybe as is the case sometimes, spends more than they should, right? You may be positioning yourself to make a loss, more or less.
You mean the seller?
The seller, yes. Just because the market is what the market is.
Yeah, maybe your profit margin will be reduced.
Will be
You will
reduced.
make a
Okay.
loss, but your profit margin may
Your
be
profit
by
margin would be
virtue of
reduced.
the fact that maybe you had to buy the land twice or any other
Yeah.
you have incurred, yes.
Okay. All right. So there's a question here from Frederick. He is asking, what's the issue about value and price? I think we touched on it. I need some clarity. A plot of land in Wa is worth 10,000 Ghana cedis. Guys, we need to move to Wa.
You should.
And that's and that will be priced at 100,000 cedis in Accra. The same piece of land, but different location. Why is the pricing so different? And why does the price or value change? I think he just wants clarity on that. He's also mentioned he's a student. So if we could just go over how location impacts the value.
So location, we all know real estate, what we say, location. So Accra is because of urbanization, a lot of people, Accra lands are desirable. There are a lot of people who demand houses and lands for that matter. So Accra is hot cake. And so by virtue of even that demand alone, the value of lands are high. And then within the same Accra, there are locations that are close to certain areas like the airport, the cantonment, close to the city centers, which are even more expensive than the outskirts. So it's pretty much where the land is positioned. Yeah.
Yeah, so Frederick, is a function of demand and supply, and the demand is higher for locations that are in good proximity to other parts of the capital, good access routes, infrastructure, schools, hospital. Demand is high in those areas, and it's the demand that drives the price high. Sophia, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's just about it. It's basic on the economics of that is economics of demand and supply and market forces pushing that. So that will be changed. Then over time, we will name it and say that this is a prime area and these are less prime areas. But it works over time. It's not just a one-time thing that works. So I'm sure within that area up there in WA, if there's a lot of development coming in, and then I'm sure where he's mentioning may be different from what the sale, the price of land is in the city centers within the capital cities of WA. I mean,
yeah.
So it would vary in that same area. So the same principle applies in all areas.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So again, from Frederick wants to know how to become a property manager or a developer. So yeah, very, very briefly, like I mentioned, he is a student, but we love to educate. So if we could just let him know, he's a student currently at the University of Ghana.
Well, there are two different things he mentioned. Property manager is different from
Yeah, so
developer.
let's do property manager, since I think that falls
So
within, yeah.
that one, usually you need what you're practicing in school to qualify you to do that, because you need to understand buildings, you need to understand infrastructure, and you need to understand the mechanisms that are required to keep that in. The property management aspect of it is adding value to the building. That's in taking care of the buildings to add value over time. So a bit different from the facilities and management of it. If we are trying to merge the two as in being a developer and a property manager, that means that you're targeting being someone who can put up buildings for people or for various uses or for yourself. And then you'd have probably a bank of buildings. So it's not just one, two, three, and then you take care of it over a period. So you have a property bank that you are taking care of it over the period, right? And adding value to yourself and to that. So you need that knowledge, whether you are getting that knowledge in school or various courses out there that you can do to prep yourself, and certification courses are around that you can take just to align yourself with that. But I think all three of us have something in common. That's what we'll mention later on, I'm sure.
Yes, I'll mention, or anyone can guess. The question and answer box is still open. So Abba, you are into development, you mentioned. So how does someone become I won't even leave it as a developer, a successful developer, because I believe everybody is looking to go into business to be profitable and to make an impact. So how can a student position themselves for that?
So just like Sofia has said, I think that you need training, because you don't just go. These days, what we realize is that everybody calls themselves a developer when they don't even understand the rudiments of construction, or what it takes to put up properties. But I believe that you need to have some knowledge of the construction space. You need to have some education with regard to building, so that you don't just get artisans, because if you leave it to them, they will do the wrong thing. They will get you into trouble. Yeah. And so, yes, you need that. You need the education, and then you need to have a grip of your finances, because this is a business. Okay, so you're building properties. You have to have the financial acumen, put things in place. How much will it cost to put put up the building, as opposed to how much will it cost to sell it, what will be the profit margin, all of that. You need good project management skills. You need that. And then you need to have knowledge about the regulatory requirements and all of that, so that you don't get to the wrong side of the law. First of all, you don't have issues with regard to the building, and that will lead you to the wrong side of the law. Recently, there was this property that was coming up around a school junction. It was in the news, I think. That was like 5 floors, very thin building that was just being built and being tilted to the left, And so these are things that you don't want to get yourself into if you don't have an idea or knowledge in the construction space, if you don't have good project management skills. being a developer just because you have money won't quite cut it. So I think that you have to put the right structures in place.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Abba. So yes, I think that there's education and training that's available. What we all have in common is that we all have the same first degree. We all went to the same university, did the same course at different times, I think, yes. But yeah, that's what we have in common. That lays a very good foundation to gear up on your professional certifications, your industry knowledge. I mean, we're all doing various different things within the space, but it's a very good platform. And here we are several years later on a call discussing properties with the world. So Hope is asking, how can upgrades versus renovations, and again, I think this has been answered, upgrades versus renovations, how can this significantly increase its selling price, rental return, and occupancy rates? So Sophia, could you kindly take that for us? Upgrades versus renovations. I don't know if there's a difference, but if you can help us.
Renovations could be you are just probably you have tiles on the floor and then which look old. So you're taking the tiles out and you're putting in new tiles. That's
Okay.
renovation. Yeah. But an upgrade is maybe you have tiles, which is porcelain tiles, and you are changing it to marble. That's an upgrade. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, or you have louver blades, they look obsolete. Or you could even have a sliding glass window, which is but it looks old. It has water has been leaking through, and you have all the sealant joints come off and all, and then you renovate it by putting in the same thing. But it's a newer version. So that's renovation. And then upgrade. So upgrade, you're moving it from let's say you are adding to you're moving the finishes that you're doing to a better price point finish. Okay,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say better as a look or whatever. I'll put it on price point. So if it is a more expensive one that you're putting in, then it's an upgrade. Okay, but anyway, now that we're talking about sustainability and all, if you decide to probably add solar panels to it, it's an upgrade as well because you're going to reduce your cost of running the house because your electricity bill is going to go up. Low. So that is an upgrade to it. Plus, it wasn't there at first, you're adding to it. So that's the difference. The other part of the question was how that plays a role and that's at least if you can come
Yes. So how can this significantly increase its selling price, rental return, or occupancy rate?
Exactly. So for rentals, I don't know how significant that would be as a change in it. That is if you're comparing the two, right? Because if somebody comes in and they want a 2-bedroom and furnished 2-bedroom, this is their budget. They want to spend say $2,000. Whether you've upgraded it or this is what the budget is, it wouldn't change it that much.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have put in solar system and say that your the electricity you're going to be going to have to pay for is going to come down, they may be considerate and say that, okay, I'll pay maybe $210 or $2,100, add $100 to it or something for what benefit is coming in. But there isn't a significant change when that is. But for value, when you value the property, Abba will definitely come in with that. But when you do an upgrade, you are adding, because I said that upgrade is an increase in the price point. But a renovation, it's just making them new. So when you renovate it, rather that means that they are not going to depreciate the property as much as the depreciating rates that will be used wouldn't be as much as if you had left it as it was without a renovation. Right. But if you have upgraded it, it means that you are adding a bit more to it. Typical example like I gave already. If you've added solar panel, that means that it's another item that we need to look at in valuing the property to add that to the value.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
When it comes to with regard to value, usually When the upgrade enhances functionality, then the value increases. But sometimes there are certain upgrades that really do not do much to the building. So for instance, if you have a 3-bedroom house, right? And then you decide that maybe you knock off the wall that separates 2 bedrooms so that you have a walk-in closet, or you use the other bedroom for a walk-in closet. It really, when we're doing valuation, it really will not add much to that. And even from a buyer's perspective, if they're looking for a 3-bedroom house and you have a 2-bedroom with a big walk-in closet, a 2-bedroom is still a 2-bedroom, not a 3-bedroom. And so it will really not be their preference. But if the upgrade enhances functionality so that it's a 2-bedroom, but you've upgraded it to a 3-bedroom, added an additional space, both in valuation and from the buyer's perspective, the value will go up, hence the price.
Yeah, it's very interesting how the differences are different based on what the use of the property is. So like for rental, people are just looking for a space that meets their needs, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, studio. But for, I think purchasing, it's the same, but it's a bit more nuanced. And then